Oprah Winfrey said once that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. And what she meant by that is that if you really think about it, you can't really have the place you are today if you don't go through the places where you've been. It's kind of like putting marbles into a chute. They roll from the beginning to the end, and you can't get the marble to the end of the chute if you don't let it run its course. So sometimes it's easy to think about the past in terms of things like, I wish I would have done something different before, because if I would have made different choices in the past, then my present would be better. Maybe if I made different choices, a relationship that didn't work out would have flourished instead of fading. Maybe if I would have made different or wiser investment choices, I'd be in a better financial state today. Maybe if I would have made different health choices, my health would be better today, etc. The list could go on endlessly. And yet, the truth is, as we go through life's experiences, we learn things. We start to have formative experiences, and those are the foundation that we build the future on. You can't have the present without the past. And it's actually a gift to the future whenever we have a learning experience, whenever we go through something and maybe make the wrong choices. Because we're signal flares. We're a lighthouse in the darkness that others in the future, maybe our future selves, maybe others who go on after we have turned into dust. When our playthrough is over, somebody else is going to play the game. And they're going to be able to see the mistakes we've made. They're going to be able to say, gee, I think I would like to do things differently. Because even if we don't make the right choices, even if we don't fully learn from our mistakes, others will be better as a result of them. Future generations will have more success in their lives because they have history with all of its faults and evils and vices and tragedy to look back on. And so it comes back to this notion that life is sort of like a tree growing in the forest. Whether the tree lives or dies, whether the tree is flourishing or cut down, ultimately life is meaningful regardless of our individual success. And that's a comforting thing to remember, because sometimes we feel like life is a tragedy, but it's not really so much a tragedy as it is an opportunity. And if it's not an opportunity for us, then it's an opportunity for others to perhaps go into the promised land, even if we are only able to look at it from afar. I was reading an article today about how Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, took 41 years to see its share price rise to $100,000 a share. Berkshire Hathaway doesn't do stock splits, so their stock price just goes up. And so after 41 years, Berkshire Hathaway had a stock price per share of $100,000. And what's interesting is starting February 7, I believe, the beginning of February, until today, which is the beginning, well, the end of March, going into the beginning of April, Berkshire Hathaway saw their stock price rise from $700,000 per share to $800,000 a share. They went from 7 to 800,000 in 37 days. So think about this. Layering on $100,000 of value per share took 41 years to do it the first time. But to do it the 8th time, it only took 37 days. So in 37 days, as much value was added as the company added in the first 41 years. Isn't that pretty crazy? And it's a good allegory for life, because that's kind of how life works. Maybe it's getting out of debt. Maybe it's saving your first $100,000, which, if you're in debt, seems like a unattainable dream. Many times the things that we have today are things that seemed very much out of reach in the past. Sometimes we think that we just can't possibly get to certain thresholds, certain goals. They just seem absolutely unattainable. And they're not really unattainable. It's just the progress that you make to take your first steps can be a very big time sink, a very big commitment to get that first initial big win. But once you do, then you can build off of former successes. You can compound your initial investments. And suddenly you realize that it takes you decades of your life just to maybe get out of credit card debt. It takes decades of your life to just build up a little bit of savings. But then it's also true, it's easier to go from saving $100,000 to saving $200,000. It's easier to make that $100,000 jump than it is to save $10,000 if you have zero. Because the initial steps require changes to your habit, changes to your ethos, changes to your outlook on life. Not to mention the fact that the more success you have, the more you can use existing success to generate momentum for future successes. When you combine those two things, the power of compound interest and the fact that as you change your habits and change your culture in life, you give yourself an overwhelming tailwind that helps you make progress that would have otherwise been impossible. The lesson there is that you can achieve things that you may not believe are possible today, because what you're underestimating is the power of compound interest. And that's true when you're looking at finance. It's true in monetary investment. But it's also true with things like habits, things like your values. And so it becomes extremely important to have a culture of creating routines that you always do and you never deviate from. and they should be attainable. They shouldn't be extreme objectives. They should be things you truly are able to do every day. Like maybe it's just keeping a journal daily of things that you're grateful for. Just because when you're making a conscious effort to devote time to meditating on gratefulness, you're less likely to go down the rabbit hole of gossip and slander and all of those casual sins that stand in the way of spiritual wholeness. Maybe you spend 15 minutes a day listening to an audiobook. 15 minutes a day that you would have otherwise spent binge watching YouTube videos or scrolling your social media feed, but you take 15 minutes and you listen to an audiobook or something educational. It all potentially adds up. And initially, it doesn't really add up very fast. It's like that adage, if you double a penny every day, what happens? And people say, well, you know, you're not going to make very much money. If you don't really think about it, it seems like, you know, if you double a penny, now you have 2 pennies. Double it again, now you have 4. But without doing the mental gymnastics, at the end of a month, if you do that every single day, you have a lot of money. A ridiculous amount of money. As a matter of fact, let's look it up right now. Like, how much money do you have if you double a penny every single day? I'm going to type it in. If you double a penny for 30 days for 1 month, then in 30 days you would have $5.3 million. So there you have it. So what if you took that penny analogy? If you doubled your gratitude, if you doubled your kindness, if you doubled your investment in your personal health routine, if you doubled your mindfulness when you're focused on projects at work, if you doubled your honesty. You see, there's a lot of things we can do that can potentially turn into overwhelming forces for good in our life. At work, I'm talking about Walmart, we have this rule. It's been a Sam Walton rule ever since, you know, he founded the company. We call it the 10-foot rule. And what that simply means is you're supposed to greet, smile at, and engage with every single customer that you come within 10 feet of. And that seems very simple, but it's actually very difficult. If you think about it, how hard is it to just say hi and make eye contact with every person you come in 10 feet of? Like that doesn't seem super hard. But then it's also very difficult to live up to that simple goal. But would it make a difference? Would it make a difference if you did? And the answer is probably would. Because when you engage actively with people, they feel more valued than when you don't. It's just that simple. But we tend to look at easy, simple, small things and we say, well, you know, I don't have a very important job. My role isn't particularly elevated. What I do doesn't matter very much. If I save $5 or $10 here or there, it doesn't make a difference. It's not going to make me a millionaire. If I try to make a positive difference in the world, it doesn't really matter because the world is a corrupt place, and sooner or later, I'm going to just burn out because I'm one person against the world. We have those attitudes. And yet the reality is every single day, if you just do a little bit consistently to invest in yourself, to invest in others, then it all adds up. And you might be surprised how much better your life becomes. So wherever you find yourself, always have hope and belief that you can do more with your life than you realize. I was reading an article about a man who studied near-death experiences. And he said that across many, many stories that people have shared, there's a universal theme that people facing end-of-life experiences tend to have something along the lines of experience where they're going through a tunnel and they have a chance to look over their life, and then they reach a threshold where they've made peace with their life, but they also understand a totality that if they go past a certain threshold, they can't return. And then they have a knowledge, a realization that there's something that they still have to do. And so they return to the land of the living because they understand that even though they've found peace, their purpose is not yet fulfilled. And stories basically of that nature tend to be quite common. We don't know exactly what causes these. We don't know if it's just a hallucination of sorts. We don't know if it's something more spiritual. But there's this sense that maybe our lives aren't important. And we sometimes don't take our lives seriously because we don't believe they're important. But to that, I would close with this thought: the butterfly effect. What if I'm talking to you and you and I having a conversation, we are just a little bit delayed from what we otherwise would be doing because we're having a talk, and then you're a little bit late, and instead of getting into a traffic accident, you don't get in a traffic accident. Well, maybe the conversation we were having didn't seem like it was very important. And yet, maybe that conversation inadvertently saved your life. Then what's more important? A lifetime of my agenda to be the master and commander of my life? Or that 15-minute conversation that just happened to change the course of history because instead of being in a place where you might have died, you were in a place where maybe you found a new life opportunity. Maybe you ran into a new work opportunity or romantic connection or something like that. Right? So we're all connected to life, and we don't understand what it is that really our purpose is. We think our purpose is to do something big, you know? Like your purpose is to get a bunch of promotions and get rich and, you know, do all this stuff with your life. But what if your purpose is just to do something small? Then that means it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. Everyone potentially has a purpose that they need to fulfill. And we don't know what that purpose is, but I think just knowing that there is such a sense of purpose afoot can be an enormous force for positivity in our lives. so that as we go through life, even if it seems monotonous, we can do it with cheerfulness and with faith that we are part of something meaningful that's greater than ourselves. Whether life is fair or foul, whether it's enriched or filled with poverty, whether we feel great or inconsequential, we should always believe that life is a beautiful thing and it's a privilege to be part of it. And we should always have that attitude that there's never a time where something happens in life that shouldn't happen. A tragedy that wouldn't have happened if we just did things differently. Because even if we do have the ability to shape the story of our lives to some degree, a big part of it is a destiny that is written in the stars. Since the beginning of time, we were on a path to experience a story that we really didn't write. So, if that's true, then we don't really need to beat ourselves up with those thoughts of what might have been. As always, good luck on your journey. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.